Yeah. Good morning, friends.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah. So let's start our discussion. Okay. Today we will learn about how to install Kubernetes cluster in AWS. I said that there are different ways to have the Kubernetes cluster. One is if you want to practice in our local machine, you can install Minikube. For that, we should install Docker already in our machine, and you should install Windows subsystem for Linux. Then only after that you have to install the Minikube. That is a single node cluster where that node will be acting as both manager and the worker, but that is not good. Let's go with the some real-time scenarios only. So for that, what I want to do is I want to create a Kubernetes cluster in AWS. AWS has a managed Kubernetes service, that is Elastic Kubernetes service. Okay, here it is. Now for that first log into AWS management console. After that, in services, then some service called container service will be there. In that, Elastic Kubernetes service is there, the most trusted way to start, run and scale Kubernetes. This is the tag that they have written there. So you can click on this. So if you click on this UI will be shown. In that, click on clusters. Okay, I just want to follow my own documentation. Okay, so here create cluster. What is the cluster name that you want to give? Enter a unique name for this cluster. This property cannot be changed after the cluster is created. Let's name this cluster as demo cluster. When we are creating EKS cluster means AWS will provide us with the control plane. What is control plane? Control plane is nothing but master in the Kubernetes. It's a master node. Now there are different versions of the Kubernetes. I want to take the latest and default version, that is 1.23. So here, if you have the AWS knowledge, you must be knowing this service IAM role. So this is the role that I have already created. I will show you now that. Select the IAM role to allow the Kubernetes control plane to manage AWS resources on your behalf. Got it? So if you want to give access to other AWS resources to this AWS control plane that we are Kubernetes control plane that we are going to create, we have to give access through IAM role. So what IAM role we have to create, that we have to learn now. So if we have already AWS knowledge, that is good. You should have that. I will just tell you what are the roles that are required for this control plane. Okay. So what we have to do is click on this, just duplicate this tag. I want to keep this tag here itself. Go to services. In that, IAM will be there somewhere.
Over here only.
Yeah, this is there. Or else you can search that in the search box. Okay. So here, so go to IAM console and this window will be opened in this. Okay. So now click on roles here. click on roles here, and what I want to do is I want to delete this one of the role that is already there. I just want to delete that. Okay, we clicked on roles and click on create a role. Okay, this will be opened. Okay, so after that, create role, then select AWS service. By default, it is selected. Then after that, choose EKS from drop down and choose EKS cluster. Okay, so here in this, we have to choose EKS, search for EKS. Okay, choose EKS. Okay, then after that, we have to choose EKS cluster here. Okay, so this role is very important. Choose EKS from drop down and choose EKS cluster and click on next. EKS and EKS cluster, click on next. Okay, after that, sorry, this one, click on next. Then next, you can, now we have to give the role name. Okay, so now let's name that like a cluster role. Cluster role 1. Okay, I just want to name like that. Cluster role 1. This is the role we have created. This is the description of that. It will allow access to other AWS service resources that are required to operate cluster managed by EKS. Okay, so then click on create role. Review the things, not reviewing, it is being created. So cluster role was created. I just want to open my text editor and I want to keep that here. Cluster role 1 is created. That is fine. Now, if I refresh this, that will be reflected here. See, this is choose this cluster role, then click on next. Okay, I want to keep the default VPC. If you have any custom VPC, if you want to deploy that EKS cluster in that VPC, you can choose that. But I want to use the default VPC and default subnets. Then security groups. So I don't want to select that. If you have any security group for you, you can use that. For example, let's say default security group you can use. Okay, so after that, keep this as public so that you will be able to connect to cluster from your local machine. And this is VPC CNI, enable pod networking within cluster. For that, we have to choose this, the pod networking version, default version I'm keeping. So you keep everything default. For service discovery, we have to enable the core DNS. So we are using the default core DNS. Then kubeproxy. Okay, kubeproxy. What is the job of the kubeproxy? For service networking within your cluster. So with this, I want to click on next. Then I don't want to enable logging and all. Click on next, review the things and create them. So it will take some time for the Kubernetes control plane to be created. Okay, it will take about 10 to 15 minutes. Why? The AWS has to give us the control plane, and the control plane will be running on some AWS server to which we don't have any visibility. So after some time, we will be getting this in active state. Okay, so after that, this is just a cluster control plane. If I open my paint, we have control plane and we have worker nodes. This control plane, now we are creating, it is in the process of creating. Once this is ready, we should add our nodes to this control plane. For that, we have to create this node group. Okay, so what we have to do is, once this is up and running, in compute section, we have a property called add node group. We have to add node group. After adding the node, once we click on this, it will be asking for the configuration of the nodes. Nodes is nothing but they are virtual machines, right? So they must be having, they will also be having configuration, let's say memory and CPU. Memory, CPU, okay, and disk. And how much, what is the configuration of the node you want? In AWS, we have multiple EC2 instances with different sizes. Okay, EC2 instance sizes. Different configuration of the EC2 instances will be available. Okay, or else if you go to this create instance also, there it will be shown to you. Why it is saying so? Let's add this control plane. Now if I go somewhere here to click on EC2 instance, instance running, click on launch instance. So here different operating system and different instance types will be there. Instance type means what is the capacity of the instance, how much you want it to be. Okay, if you click on this, different things will be there, many things will be there. Okay,
Compare instance types over
yes,
there.
if you click on this, we will be getting the things, much memory, CPU, and all those things will be given. So for this instances, we have to choose them. Okay, so now that is fine.
Sir,
So yeah,
like as we discussed earlier also, like container is using host resources. Suppose take an example, we have selected 4 GB of RAM for one container, this for this node. Okay, and that particular service running on that node has exhausted that limit. Many of the people are using that service only. At that time, what like Kubernetes or EKS do?
container
Like
will be terminated. So in order to overcome that, we will make it elastic. That means we will apply horizontal pod auto scaler. So if the capacity is exceeding, then automatically containers will be scaled and they will be deployed on the another available node.
okay.
Okay, we will see that. We will apply the load and we will see what will happen. So now, so same like we have created one role, we have to also create a role for node group also. Let's do that. Okay, so while this is being up, now let's create that role as well. Okay, so we will name the node group. After that, we have to provide IAM role for that node group as well, because node group should have access to Kubernetes resource, sorry, this AWS resources. So again, open the IAM. We are in the IAM. Click on create role, and go to roles and create. Then choose EC2 as use case and click on next. Okay, so now here what we have to choose is click EC2 as use case. Okay, so after that click on next. Then we have to add the permissions here. Okay, so in permissions policy section, we have to choose the policies. Okay, what policies? In filter and field type EKS. Okay, choose EKS. Press enter. Sorry, EKS. Hit enter. Once we hit enter, we have to choose imagine EKS worker node policy. Imagine EKS worker node policy. This we have to choose, and we have to choose Amazon EKS CNI policy. Amazon EKS CNI policy. This policy provides the Amazon VPC CNI plugin. Okay, choose this as well. Okay, so after that, clear the filter and type EC2. we have to clear the filter. That two we have chosen. Now type for EC2, hit enter. Okay.
We are giving access to nodes, right
Yes.
now.
Yeah, access to AWS resources to the node group.
Node group.
Okay.
Okay.
Now we have to choose Amazon EC2 container registry read only. Amazon EC2 content registry read only access. We are giving these permissions to that role. Okay. So now if I clear this, that is fine. Now if I click on next, so these are the permissions policy summary. Now let's give the role details. Role name. What is the role name? Node group role. Node group. Node group role 1. Let's give. I just want to give that as 1 because I may have the roles already created with other names. Then click on create role. So you can this node group 1 role is being created. It is being created. Okay. So now we have two roles. One is what? Cluster role 1, node group role 1. These are the two roles that we have created for us. Now let's come and check here. It is still being created. I think in 2 to 3 minutes it will be up for us. Okay, that is fine. Meanwhile, what we have to do, we have to have kubectl in our machine. We have to have kubectl machine. How to do that? I have already told you. For that, install this, download this, and just copy that to system32 folder. And if you type after that, run the command line. If you type this command, then that will be given for you. It will show that kubectl is installed. Okay, that is one thing. And we have to install AWS CLI. And why do we need to install AWS CLI? By installing AWS CLI in our machine and configuring, then only we can get the cluster access in our local machine. So for that, what we have to do is we have to install AWS CLI using this.
From that bash or from that other resources, it will not possible to get the access. From CMD or Git bash or Node.js, like that application does not allow you us to get the access for that cluster from that CMD tools, like CMD tools, Git bash and others.
Yeah. Okay, we have to install this CMD AWS CLI. Okay, so after that, if you run this, you should be getting that AWS installed in that. After that, what we have to do? We have to, okay, so now what we do is let's click on this. This is the control plane. Click on compute. Here, click on add. As of now, our cluster is having no nodes at all. We have to add the nodes. This is the control plane. We don't have the nodes. We have to create the nodes. For that, create add node group here. Then name this as node group 1. Something like that. Then node IAM role. What is the IAM role? This is the role that we have created. That IAM role that we have to select here. Okay. So after that, click on next. These things we will understand, taints and tolerations and all. Now, node means nothing but it is something, some machine, right, with some operating system. What operating system you want to choose? Okay, you can have any operating system. You can have Ubuntu or whatever. You can have multiple things. But EKS is providing these things, and by default, I'm choosing Amazon Linux here. Okay. So then capacity type on demand or spot instances. I want to use the on demand. Spot instances means you will will bid for the instances in the marketplace. Okay, in the open market, that you should be knowing if you have AWS knowledge. Then what is the instance type? How much is the size that you want for the nodes? Okay, so I want to have T3 dot small. Okay, uh, each machine will be having 2 virtual CPUs and 2 GB memory. I want to use this. Disk size 20 GB is enough for me, and the desired is size is 2. I want to have 2 nodes always up and running. Initially, I want to have 2 nodes. Minimum size, even if the load is decreased also, I want to have the minimum 2 nodes always up and running, and maximum it should not exceed 2 nodes. Okay, so this is, so in case of updation, I want to maximum unavailable is only 1. I want to update only one thing at a time. Click on next. So I want to keep those things. If you want to SSH into the nodes, then you have to choose this. You have to enable this. For that, what we have to do, you have to provide the key pair. This is nothing but EC2 instance. Okay, right?
In each case also they allow us to SSH to the nodes.
Yeah, SSH to the nodes, because these are our nodes, right? But there is no SSH to the control plane.
Control plane.
Click on next, review the things, click on create. So if you do this, node group will be created. It will be created, and that nodes are nothing but what? Our EC2 instances. So if you go to EC2, those 2 nodes will be reflected here. These are earlier ones. Okay, after some time, those nodes will be created and those nodes will be reflected in the EC2 instances. Okay, so apart from that, what we have to do? We have to install AWS CLI. Okay, install AWS CLI, then click on AWS configure. If you click on AWS configure, it will be asking for 2 things. So what are those 2 things? If you go to IAM, see here, my security credentials is there. In IAM in dashboard, my security credentials is there. Click on this. Click on this. Here what we have to do is, okay, this is last used one. Okay, so we have to create a access key here. Because I have 2, I can't. Only 2 access keys can be created. So I just want to delete this. For deleting this, we have to deactivate this first, and after that we have to delete it by confirming. Delete this thing. Okay, so now let's say how to create access key. Create access key. To create access key, then click on this, create access key. Once we create this, so it will give access key and secret access key. So if you click here, AWS configure, I'm opening VS Code. If you have installed the AWS CLI already, that will be shown. This is the process to install that. Steps are given here. So after that, we have to type this command here.
Okay, then that AWS CLI installing means like they are just installing the commands. The
Yeah,
supporting
AWS
files.
commands. We have to authorize our local machine to access the AWS.
Okay.
Why do we need to do that? I will tell you.
Sure.
So once we do this, okay, once we AWS, if we type this, then it will be asking for what? Access key and secret key. First thing, you have to copy this and paste there, and after that it will be asking secret access key also. Show it and type that there. Okay, it will be asking for some. Okay, I don't have any problem. Let's do that here as well. So meanwhile, let me delete these things. So AWS CLI. So AWS version. If I type this, okay, this is installed. That's fine. Now what I am doing, how to connect to your cluster through command, connect to AWS through command line. For that, we have to provide the credentials. AWS configure. It will be asking for access key ID. This is the access key. This entire thing I'm copying here. Then it will be asking a secret access key. So copy that, paste it here. Okay, default region. If this is default, that's fine. If you want to give, you can give. Otherwise, you can hit enter. But let me give this default output format. I want to keep that. That's a JSON, I think. Default output format. That is fine. Now we have created Kubernetes cluster. As a part of that, we have also created the two nodes are up and running. So if I go to our cluster here, refresh this. If we go to compute section, here it will show that we have two worker nodes, and those worker nodes belong to a single node group. We can create multiple node groups. If the load is not, the load is increasing, if you want more resources for your cluster, then what you can do is you can create another node group, and in that you can launch another instances with a different size as well. That is then how to connect to this cluster. Okay, so for that we have installed AWS CLI and we have authorized to our AWS account through CLI. Now, how to connect to the cluster that is there here? That is there. This is the cluster, demo cluster we are giving. How to connect to that from my local? For that, we have a command in AWS EKS. Okay, so this command is to get the credentials for the cluster. Okay, before that I will show you one thing. Go to this page, see users Lenovo. In this, let me delete this .cube. Okay, here we don't have any .cube directory. I will show you. So to get the credentials for this cluster, we have to execute a command. With execution of that command, we will be getting a file called kubeconfig file. Only if you have that kubeconfig file, then only we can access the cluster. How to get the kubeconfig file? For that, we have to execute AWS EKS. In which region your cluster is there? That is there in AP South 1. And this is the command update kubeconfig. Then what is the cluster name? ---- name equals to demo cluster. If I execute this, okay, I will execute this. If your cluster is different, name is different, you have to supply that name here. Okay, so if I execute this, see what will happen here. .cube directory will be created. Okay, .cube directory has been created. If you go inside that, see config file has been created. If you open the config file, see these are the APIs, API version. This you will understand what it is. Cluster certificate authority data. This is the cluster certificate authority data. In the context means the cluster names and the namespaces. This will be there. So kind is this one. Like this, we have this one. Okay, so this is the credentials. If you have this, okay, we have this, then only you can get that. See, once we execute this command, what it is saying, add a new context to the config file. This we are getting. Now, how we are able to execute this? Because we connected to this AWS account. How we have done that? We have configured AWS CLI and we have given the credentials. Okay, with that we are able to get that. That is fine, you will understand. Now, I want to see how many nodes are there in my cluster. For that, kubectl is the command line that we use to interact with our Kubernetes cluster. There are two ways to interact with our Kubernetes cluster. One is through command line interface, that is kubectl. Another one is GUI, which is not at all used in the real time or anywhere. Okay, GUI we won't be using. kubectl. Now, I want to get the list of nodes. How many nodes are in that? For that, the command is kubectl get nodes is the command. Hit enter. See, we got that we have two nodes in our cluster and these are the node names. How do we check that node names? If you go here, if you click on compute, see this is the node name, this is the another node name. They are created about.
Sir, EKS means there is a by default
EKS means Elastic Kubernetes Service.
That's fine, but I am asking like in that by default that kubectl will work. We do not need to install by separate.
No, we have to install kubectl. I told yesterday, right?
In the AWS also.
No. In
EKS?
AWS, no. In AWS, we don't install.
Okay.
I want to communicate with this cluster from local machine. For that, we have to install this kubectl. Okay. If you want to communicate with your AWS account through command line, we have AWS CLI. If I want to interact with the GitHub, we have Git CLI. Like that, to interact with the Kubernetes, we have the kubectl.
Correct. Okay.
And it doesn't mean that if you have kubectl, you will be connecting to that. No, we have to get the proper credential. We have to get the config file. Okay, how to get the
why
config?
This config AWS config is required? I mean kube config and all this.
Why that is required means those are credentials for the cluster.
Okay.
Got it right, Venki?
Yeah. Okay.
Let's say I will tell you this like this. We have an AWS account. In that, let's say we have multiple Kubernetes clusters running. Okay, this is AWS, multiple Kubernetes clusters are running. This is my kubectl command. This is my local machine. How to connect to this any of these clusters? I have to get the credentials for them. Okay, I have to get the credentials. Then only I can connect to that. How to get the credentials for that? For that, we have to execute this command. Okay, and to which AWS it will be connecting to? The AWS that you have configured. To that AWS it will be connecting, and if you have the cluster with this name, then the credentials in the form of config file will be downloaded here.
But if there are multiple clusters, then
okay, then the context will be added to your config file. Okay, let's say if you have cluster 2, for that also context will be added. Okay, and we can switch between the context.
In the same config file, it will get added.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I will show you that as well going forward.
Oh, but what about some IAM user, something like that?
Yeah, for that we should have understanding of the IAM, and we have to give that IAM permission to that particular Kubernetes service. Then that people also will be able to get that. Okay, so if I get kubectl get config get context, as of now I have only one cluster. If we have multiple cluster, you will be getting the multiple context, and this context will be there in that same config file. Context will be added. I will show you that. Okay, as of now, let's see kubectl get nodes. We are successfully connected to the cluster. I am able to get the things now. Now, let's go to our actual Kubernetes discussion. We have seen that this, so when we type this kubectl get nodes, the request will be first going to the control plane, more specifically to API server. API server then will ask the etcd about the information. So saying that how many nodes are there, etcd will be giving that information to API server, and the API server will give us the response saying that this is the information.
And in this
Can
EKS,
we see this API server etcd
no,
scheduler from the command line?
that is what my question. Like in EKS, we don't have the access to the control plane, right? It is
Yes,
for
yes. We
AWS.
can't go inside this.
What is kubeadm actually? Kubeadm command also will use it, right? Very
KubeADM is a tool to install Kubernetes in your own on-prem machines, not just on-prem machines. If you have your own Linux machine, if you want to install Kubernetes, then we have to use the KubeADM. That also covered in the course.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, now this is, we have gone through that. Now let's come to the actual discussion of the Kubernetes. So this installation of the cluster may be anywhere. Now we have installed our cluster in AWS. You may be installing in our cluster in Azure. Somebody may be having that in GCP. Somebody may be having that in his own virtual machine. Anything is fine. Right from this command, everything is similar for everything, for every cluster where they are, irrespective of the platform the cluster is installed. Every command will be same. Okay, so here we have used this EKS dashboard. In Azure we have AKS. Same thing there also, we will request for a control plane. We will be creating that, some roles and all those things will be there. We will be adding the nodes. After that we will be connecting through Azure CLI. Then after that, interacting with the cluster is exactly same irrespective of the platform in which your cluster is residing. This is, now we have cluster. Okay, that is fine. Now let me not draw cluster again and again. Now what I want to do is the simplest deployment, the smallest deployment unit in the Kubernetes is called as what? Pod. Okay, we don't generally use container here. We will be using the pod. We will deploy the pods, not the container. In the pods, container will be created. Pod is nothing but some abstract layer over the Docker container. As simple as that. If you are not feeling comfortable, you can use pod and container synonymously. Okay, no problem.
Abstract layer means like?
Abstract layer means it's something like a box kind of thing. Okay, for networking and for storage. Okay, that thing you will be understanding that. Okay, a box will be created. Something like, for example, we have the application. What is container? Container is nothing but some abstract layer over the application. Like that, over the container, we have some shell. Okay, some box. That is called as the pod. Okay, so a pod can have multiple containers as well. In that case, that is called as the multi-container pod. But in 99% of the times, we deal with the single container pods. We will also see how the multi-container pod will look like. Okay. Then, so this we have done. There are two ways to deploy the things in the Kubernetes cluster. One is imperative way. Another one is declarative approach. Imperative approach and declarative approach. Imperative approach means we will execute the commands one after the other to get the desired state. That means to deploy the Nginx application in 3 replicas, we have to execute few commands to get that desired state, called having 3 replicas of Nginx application. So we will be executing few commands to get the desired state. That is called as what? Imperative approach. In declarative approach, we will write all the steps in a file and we will execute that file with a command. Then the containers, the pods will be created. The deployment will be created in the cluster. That is called declarative approach. We will declare everything in a file, and this file can be version controlled. It can be stored in the repositories. That is called as what? Declarative approach. So for simple understanding, if you any one of you have not understood this, let's say we have a destination. We have destination B. We are starting from A. We want to travel from A to B, and let's say we are going on bike. Okay, so you don't know driving. Your friend is the driver. Means he rides the bike, and you are sitting behind him. He don't know the path. He don't know the roads to reach the B. By sitting behind, you will be telling him that first go straight, then take right. Is it right? Yes, this is right. Then go here, then go straight, then take left. After that, move 500 meters again. Then we have to go this side, this side. At every milestone, you are guiding him, and finally you are reaching the destination. Okay, this you are telling at every moment, go by this way, that way, take this much of a turn, and all those things you are telling. This is called imperative approach. To reach the desired destination, you are commanding, you are guiding him all the way. In declarative approach, for example, let's say this is some water that service, that bike services are there in, right, in Hyderabad, in some cities. What is it? Rapido. So if you are going on Rapido bike, what you will tell? You will just tell him the place where you want to reach. That's it. Okay, you will just open the Google map. Everything will be defined in the Google map, and it will directly take you there. You don't need to guide him at every moment. This is the best example of declarative approach. Okay, or else if that Google technology, that Google map is not there, you will just tell him, your friend or the Rapido guy, you will be telling them, so this is the destination I want to give. First, this will be the way. You will explain him everything in detail. You will be writing that on a paper, and you just sit calm behind. So you will be taking you to the destination. So the desired state has been declared in a file. That is called as the declarative approach. Okay. Now let's deploy a few things using imperative approach. For that, anyway, to interact with the Kubernetes cluster, we should have the kubectl command. Command starts with kubectl. Kubectl run is the command to create a pod. Okay, and I want to name that pod as hello nginx. Copy this somewhere. Okay, here this is. In case of Docker, what we did, Docker run. What is the name of the container? Hello nginx. Then we are specifying the image at the last. This is how we declare. Here we are creating a container. Here also same thing, we are creating a pod. But here Docker is the CLI, but here kubectl is the CLI to interact with the Kubernetes cluster. Kubectl run, that means create a pod called hello nginx. And the pod should have the container. That container should be created from the image called nginx. And where this image will be pulled from? By default, this image will be pulled from Docker Hub. Once this is pulled, where this will be running? It will be running on any of the two nodes. Okay, This is kubectl run. And what is the pod name that you want to give? Give that here. The image for the container, you have to give -" image equals to nginx. If I execute this command,
So where is this image created? Because you connected to AWS, right? So this image where it will be
this
created?
image will be pulled from by default Docker Hub.
Yeah, where the image where it will be created.
Okay, it will be downloaded into the Docker host machine.
I mean,
Okay,
is it
I will
one of these children node that will be created, or?
Yes, I will draw that now. Okay, or instead what I will do is I will go to here. So we are trying to create an nginx pod. The request will go to API server. API server will send the etcd and get the information from that. Etcd will tell that no, we don't have any hello nginx pod. We can create that. Though that information will be coming to API server. API server will send that request to scheduler. Scheduler will assign a node to the particular pod. Scheduler will schedule the pod on any of this node based on the resource availability. Okay, and we can influence the scheduling using manual scheduling that we will see. Okay, then once this is scheduled on this node, what will happen? Here kubelet will be getting the request. Kubelet will command the Docker to create the container, nginx container. So where this container will be created from? It has to have the Docker image. This Docker, which is running in this node, will pull the nginx image from the Docker hub, and it will create the container. That container will be wrapped in a box called pod, and that pod will be running on that particular node.
And in this case, if worker node 1 has the image already in his local repository, then it will directly create without pulling.
It can directly take from there. Okay, otherwise it will be pulling from the hub.docker.com. But
whatever
when we have the
images,
Docker image here, we don't have that, right?
okay, no, but like whatever images you want, like new images you want, like it will pull from the Docker hub, and it will keep that copy of the like whatever, like 3, 4, whatever it may.
Yes. And also we can give access to our private registries as well, that we will see going forward. Okay, now let's execute this command.
And one more, like if that suppose take is there any connection between node 1 and node 2? If images is at node 1 and not at node 2, then will it pull from Docker hub itself, or
no, this will pull the Docker image for itself. Okay, it won't be getting that from here. It will pull it. Okay, now kubectl run.
So one more doubt here. So is it like single container pod or multi-container pod?
This is a single container pod. Okay.
So can you please go back to the diagram? Can you please go back to the diagram?
Yes.
Okay. So you have mentioned like pod 1 is having container 1, container 2, container 3, and pod 2 is having container 1. So like, what does it mean? So exactly.
Okay, that means there in this diagram, 3 pods are running and 1 pod is having only single container. This pod is having 3 containers. This pod is 2 containers. This command is not related to this.
Okay, got it.
Just I am explaining. You can think of this pod is something will be created.
Now this image will be residing in worker 1 or worker 2 after you install.
Scheduled. Yeah, that will if this scheduler has decided this to schedule on the worker 1, the image will be there on the worker 1 only. Okay, and once we create the multiple replicas, wherever the pods are created, there the images will be there.
So after execution, can we see with some command like where it is created? You may run this now.
Yeah, I will run this. For that, we have to SSH into that machine and we have to go and see Docker image ls there.
Correct.
So from Kubernetes, we cannot see.
From Kubernetes, we can't see. Okay. So I will check that if there is any case, because that thing I did not come across anywhere. kubectl, this pod has been created. See what it is in pod hello nginx has been created, and it will be created in the default namespace. We will be learning that in the course. Okay, that is what this course is all about. kubectl get pods. I want to get the list of pods that are running. See, this hello nginx pod has been created, and as a part of this one by one container ready, we wanted to have only one container, and that one container is ready and it is running. There are no restarts. You will understand it is created 41 seconds ago.
Can we give -o wide?
Yes, we will give that. Okay. Next thing I wanted to tell that only. I wanted to know where that particular pod is running, on which node that is running. For that, you can hit enter. O wide means output will be given in the wide format. See, this is the IP address of this pod is this one.
Yeah, I think using this command maybe we can get.
What you want to get?
See, our pod is installed in this IP.
This node, yes, this is the node. Out of these nodes, this is the node. This command is for that purpose only mainly.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. This is now. Instead of that, we can also get another way. kubectl describe pod. What is our pod name? Hello nginx. If I describe this, you will be getting the events here. Before that, let me show you this. So the namespace, you will understand that. So here the containers. This is the container. This is the container ID in the node where this pod is running. See, this is the node. This is the node on which it is running. Okay, and this is the node IP address. Okay, this is the image that is pulled from the Docker host. Okay, if you come to here, you come here, see these are the events. First, scheduler has scheduled the pod on this node. After that is there, what kubelet is trying, the information is coming from kubelet. Okay, saying that image is being pulled from the image is being pulled, and by default it will be pulled from the Docker hub. Successfully pulled the image, created container, and container got started. These are the events of the pod. Now, if we want to go inside the container, we have a command there, docker exec it, in the container name we have given. Here also, I just want to get the pod again. kubectl get pods. kubectl command exec it. I want execute commands in interactive mode in this pod. Okay, pod in the sense it is having only one container, so we will be interacting with that container and specify ---- dash. Now we are into the terminal.
Why you are giving two hyphens? Is it a syntax? Or?
That is syntax.
Space is also there in between hash and dash and dash.
Space is there.
Okay.
Sometimes even if you don't give these two, it will be okay. Okay. Now let me see. So we are into the terminal of the container. Okay. cd share nginx html. So this is default directory, right? So this is something mistyping. So this is the nginx file. So if I want to exit from this, you can exit docker kubectl get pods. We are getting the pods. That is okay. We can create the files and anything in that container. That is fine. Now what I wanted to tell, this is this one. If you want to delete that, you can delete kubectl delete using kubectl. delete command, delete pod. What resource you want to delete? Pod. Which pod? Hello NGINX. And I wanted to show you that thing. Now let's not give this hyphen. Okay. See, this generally this is being deprecated, so it is recommending us to use double hyphen here. Okay, and that is we are again. So touch. Yeah.
Laxman, in the kubectl -o wide, right? So some people will give JSON path is equal to 2 braces.
How you want to get the output? That thing will be there. So what is it? Let's explore that. I don't know that, but I have also seen, but I don't want to. kubectl get pods -o wide
JSON path. Okay, we can explore.
Okay.
Because I have seen people using this, but I never know how to.
But in pipelines also we never used that. Maybe there are different ways to get the output of that particular command. Okay. Okay.
Something like this I will use.
Spec
But
container. Okay. Got it.
I don't know what is spec, what is container. I don't know.
Yeah, got it. So here, what they are doing is.
Achha, is this a JSON string?
I will do one thing. Get pods O wide. So here, what they are giving is something like.
No, you should give this in. Okay. Yeah. Correct.
I think it will work in Linux. JSON path. It seems like it will give the spec containers and the name of the containers it will be giving. Seems like so. Okay, in spec in containers we will be.
Spec means what? Spec means it is a standard one only.
Specification. Once we go to the declarative approach, you will understand where we are writing all this.
Oh, declarative approach. Okay.
We will be writing all those things. Anyway, we can also get pod. What is our pod name? Get pods. Oh, sorry, we have to here. Get pod. Okay, so this is okay. That is not working. I will tell you. I will explore how this has to be used.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, no issues.
Yeah, this pod is now being run. kubectl get pods. Who can get the configuration of this pod? What is the status of it? For that, kubectl get pod hello nginx. Okay, so in this output in the YAML format. I want to get the output in the YAML format. If I do this, it will open the current configuration. It will give us the current configuration of the pod. Okay, so if I copy that something here, pod.yaml, you will understand this declarative approach. See, this is the current configuration. So this is something like in spec containers will be there, the name of the container. Okay, what I'm thinking is that JSON, whatever you said, in order to get the container names, that will be used. Okay, we will explore that. That is how. Then if you want to edit the pod, you can do. Okay, we will play with the other commands tomorrow, friends. That's it for today. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. It's already exceeding 9. And those who have not paid for this, you can pay the fee so that you will be eligible for the next classes. I mean the new one, only those people who opted for the Kubernetes especially. Okay, thank you friends. Any doubts here?
We need to practice first, then we can get that out.
Okay. Bye. See you.
Bye, sir.